personal tenacity, and a targeted focus. Those are two fundamental qualities that any successful job search will have. It provides you with clarity, purpose, and direction that you know where you're going because the average job search, according to Forbes and LinkedIn, can last anywhere from 3 to 5 months. If you're not completely focused on what it is you want to accomplish. It's also important to note that according to Monster.com, an estimated total of 96% of workers were looking for a new job in 2023, largely in search of better pay. Developing a mindset and growth potential in a job search to create the conditions that you ultimately want. Gainful employment requires some strategic planning. It also requires a certain level of commitment. So let me ask you, how many jobs are you applying for each and every day? Do you take the mindset that because you're unemployed, applying for jobs is your full-time job? Have you ever considered applying to at least 50 jobs a day and really committing to the process? Do you need some help in developing a sustainable game plan so that you can experience success in your job search? Do you want to get the entirety of the process across the finish line and into the end zone? Well, if you answered yes to any of the questions I just posed to you, I'm glad you stopped by today because I had a conversation with my friend Annie Margarita Yang. She's the author of The 5-Day Job Search, which helps young professionals get out of student loan debt while also pursuing their ideal dream job. She's a leading voice in millennial finances, helping young people navigate today's tough economic challenges and finding their own version of financial and personal prosperity. It's a great privilege for me to kick off the new year by helping you reach financial prosperity and have a targeted focus in order to land your dream job, because my conversation with Yang starts right now. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm super excited to talk to you about inclusive job searching and everything that has to do with the great book that you wrote. Great to see you this morning, and thank you so very much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely no. And I wanted to start our conversation by asking you about effective job search strategies because, as you know, when we look for jobs, depending on the industry or the interest that we currently have, there are different strategies that one can take to have a successful job search. So I'm wondering your thoughts there and how people can start an effective job search.
The best thing people can do is to first know what they want, because if you don't know what you want, you're going to be aiming in the dark, right? So I tell people first think about the title that you're going after. Like, for example, someone who was working at the front desk at a hotel told me the title he wants 10 years down the line is a hotel manager. And then I was like, well, what promotions does it take to get there? And I found out this the second job he should go after his current job, right, is actually front desk supervisor. And then he can work his way up from there. So once you know you want to be a front desk supervisor, you want to target that in your next job search, you write a highly targeted resume and LinkedIn profile for that. And you can actually use ChatGPT to do that.
Yeah, technology is a wonderful thing when it can act as a competitive advantage, can it?
Yes, absolutely. I think anyone who is not using it to their advantage right now is going to fall behind. Like, I've actually spoken to a career coach at a college. You know, she's the one in charge of the career center. And I told her I want to teach these college students how to use ChatGPT. And then she was just like, no, I want them to do it the old fashioned way. I understand, wanting to do things manually, but if everyone else is going to move forward and use AI and write an even better resume than these students can write themselves, then they're going to fall behind.
Well, technology can be everyone's secret weapon, can't it?
Yes.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to ask you about the idea of inclusion when it comes to job searching, specifically for folks with disabilities, because, and I was born with cerebral palsy, and outside of hosting this podcast, I work with businesses to help them amplify the hiring of folks with disabilities. So tell me, how do you think folks with disabilities can take an inclusive lens to their job search, and how do you think we can get those on the hiring end of things to think more inclusively when they're looking to fill vacant positions?
I think it's important to not like make it the center or the focus like the centerpiece of your job search, right? I understand disability is something that affects the individual's lives a lot, but if you speak to a small business owner during the job search and then you just keep mentioning like, oh, you have to be inclusive and like remind them like I have a disability, therefore I need accommodation in the interview itself before they even decided, I really like this guy, I think he has the potential. Like before you even do that, you already start talking about that. The employer could potentially be put off, right? So I think that's something you do more later in the stages, like after you already get an offer and then you start like negotiating, right? I think that's at that point that you do it, because if you do it beforehand, you could put some people off and then they might not give you an offer and you might not ever know why.
Mm-hmm. And tell me, how has your personal journey impacted why you wanted to write the book and the work that you do today?
Because I was working a whole string of minimum wage jobs and I didn't go straight to college. And then after I did go to college, I got a degree in communications. But coming out, I was working at Domino's Pizza. So everyone's parroting the same thing. They're all saying, oh, if you want to get a job quicker or easier, if you want to have career success, you need a college degree. And I was like, but why? Right. And then finally, when I did get the degree, I come out, I'm working minimum wage again. I'm just like, what was that all for? Right. So I decided there's something about a job search process that people simply don't understand, right? And so when I moved from Texas to Boston, I had no accounting degree. My degree was in communications. I said, I'm going to apply to accounting jobs because I'm really good at financial management in our household. If I can do it for our household, I think I can do it for business, right? I think the skill, the experience is important and it's transferable. So I started applying to 50 jobs a day. And by the end of the week, I got an accounting job. This is with people telling me straight up to my face that I'm unqualified, right? And I just said, I don't care what you think. I'm going to keep going until one person tells me, yes, we'll give you an offer. And I got an offer. I did this for 3 job searches. Every single one of them, I got an offer in less than a week. So that's why I wrote the book. A lot of this is my personal experience.
Yeah, and tell me, when people are finished reading the book, besides the strategies that you provide them to land their dream jobs or jobs they desire. What other messages do you hope people take out of the book that they can also apply to the other aspects of their life?
A lot of it is how you tell your own story. So, like, but that's everything in life, right? Like, attitude, I think, is how it, attitude is basically, it determines how your life turns out because horrible things happen to all of us. But the people who are on the other side and they become stronger for it, it's all about their attitude, right? Like, when I was working at Domino's Pizza, I was like, why am I here? I don't deserve to be here. I had a lot of pride because I was like, finally I got that degree and here I am working with other people in the same place, right? And I had a coworker who was disabled. And I learned so much from that guy. It changed my life. That story ended up being in the book. My coworker used to work as a sheriff, and then one day driving up to the stop sign, he couldn't see anymore. And then after a lot of eye surgeries, I think he had glaucoma or something, I don't know, or cataracts, he became permanently blind. And he was just like, just because I'm disabled doesn't mean I should just sit back and collect disability income, right? I also want to still be a productive member of the household and put food on the table, help pay the mortgage. And so he decided, I need to look for jobs that don't require me to see. So he got a job at Domino's Pizza folding boxes, and he folded like 1,000 boxes a day. He's been doing it for 10 years at that point, and his story was so inspiring that he ended up on TV. And when I heard his story, I was like, why am I so ungrateful for a job at Domino's Pizza? It was an honest job, right? And here's this guy who's on disability. He was so grateful and content working there. And I learned how to be content working those kinds of jobs because of that guy. So the book goes beyond just job search. It teaches you how to see your world differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you define professional ambition? Because it can be different for everyone. And how do you think it's interconnected with internal motivation as well?
That's a hard question you're asking me, but I think really professional ambition is whatever you're setting your sights to. Like, I think everyone should have goals in the workplace and in their career. So long as you have that, I think the ambition to do better is there. So I think really you need to think about what you want. And if you know what you want, you're going to go after it, and nothing should stop you from doing that.
Yeah, we talked earlier about a targeted job search and resume. But when we create resumes, I'm curious, what do you think hiring managers are most looking for in today's resume? How can it go from the bottom of the pile to the top of the list?
It's always been the same. It hasn't changed. Hiring managers are still looking for achievements on the resume. What I found when other people were telling me, well, I already have a great resume and I'm not getting any calls for interviews. And I was just like, well, let me take a look at your resume. And honestly, their resume could have looked like anyone else's resume. Like if I removed the contact information at the top from every single person's resume, it would have all just blended in, right? Like the resume was simply a repeat of their job duties, basically. It could have been anything. It could have been like a copy paste of their job listing from the job that they were already working at, right? So what I tell people is like, yes, have keywords in there. The keywords are important because you have to speak the employer's language, and whatever keywords the employer is using, that's their language, right? You have to speak to that. But also using those keywords, you have to change it so that they are reflecting your actual accomplishments. Like, for example, working in accounting, one of the things every accountant in my role personally does is we enter bills and we pay bills. Like, okay, so what? Right? Like, so what? Another accountant working in the real estate industry is doing the same thing: enter bills, pay bills. Like that all just blends in. Well, what if I said the previous person took 2 days to process all the bills, and I cut that down to just 2 hours. Cut bill processing time from 2 days down to 2 hours. That is a better accomplishment to put down on the resume than just enter and pay bills.
And it's important to have those differentiating factors that set you apart, isn't it?
That's very important because everyone can do the job, but the question is, can you do it better?
Absolutely. And, I want to talk to you about discovering your calling because I know that you're a big person when it comes to speaking your truth during a job interview process. So, what does that mean to you to discover your calling and speak your truth?
I think a lot of people, they already have this inkling, this feeling in their heart that there's something that they're meant to do, but society has conditioned them to believe that going after that feeling that they have in their heart is impossible. They'll never make a living doing it, therefore don't even try because they're going to become a starving artist or something like that, right? So that discovering your calling, some people have so many layers in their conditioning that at that point they don't even know what they want to do anymore. So your job basically is, once you have a regular job that pays the bills, a 9 to 5 job that doesn't necessarily align with your passion, it pays the bills, it's your job to peel back those layers of the onion and start discovering what it is that you want to do. But I have a feeling that a lot of people already knew when they were kids. Like, for example, when I was a kid, I said to my parents, I want to grow up and be an actress, right? And so there's something there. Being an actress, I'm not necessarily an actress today, but I'm in front of the camera. I'm on YouTube. I'm here doing podcast interviews. Like, I have a more public career than just a 9 to 5 office worker, for example, right? There's something there. And I followed that feeling that I had when I was a kid. I think that's the way you got to go. You have to think back. What did you want to do when you were a kid? It will start leading you to the right answer.
Well, because when you discover a passion and you can turn it into a profession, you never worked a day in your life, right?
That's right.
Absolutely. And you also tell me that you can also maintain a certain level of authenticity while also remaining professional at work. So, how do you balance the two, in your opinion?
Well, professionalism is really more of a demeanor that you put on, right? Authenticity, so that's something everyone can do, the professional part. But the authenticity part, I think people hide themselves at work. They're not like fully honest. They're just like, I should check my personality at the door. Or like, my interests, my passions outside of work, leave them at the door as well. But I had met somebody, my dentist, who he passed away, my dentist. But he like was the prime example of someone who is both professional and authentic. So when you walked into his office, the lobby was almost like his living room. There was a fireplace in there. There were like shelves upon shelves of books that he personally enjoyed reading. So he had theology books, health and diet books, like philosophy books, like all the things he enjoyed reading about. He put those kinds of books in the lobby. And then, there was a sofa there. So it's almost like while you're waiting in your own home, right? Or his home. And then in the actual room where you sat down in the dental chair, he was playing classical music in the background. So we know like what his musical tastes were as well. And then even when he was working in your on your mouth, you're basically just stuck there. So you can't speak back, but he can talk about anything he wants. He starts talking about God and veganism and things like that while working on your teeth. But he still had professionalism. He had the best dental work I have ever seen, basically. He was basically the best in the industry in terms of the actual dental work, but he still showed who he was outside of the dentistry part.
Well, it's important to keep both professional pride and personal identity, isn't it?
Yes, and that's an example of someone who did it successfully.
Absolutely. And I want to talk to you about creating autonomy during a job interview process and a job search. Because once you know what you want to do, then you can target those certain positions and develop strategies to obtain goals, can't you? So talk to me about developing autonomy during a job search and the interview process as well.
Well, what exactly do you mean by developing autonomy in the job search?
By creating choices in your job search, how can you create sort of flexibility of choice?
Oh, so basically like opening up more options for yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the best way is to apply to 50 jobs a day. Because I was talking to people come to me. They tell me, Annie, I've been unemployed for 5 to 6 months. And I'm just like, how many jobs are you applying to a day? Maximum five. And I said, no, no, no. You got to increase that number. You got to apply to 50 a day. You're unemployed. Your full time job is to apply to jobs, right? And they look at me like I'm crazy. 50 jobs a day, that's a lot. And then I said, no, it's not a lot because you upload one resume to the platform. It's already a targeted resume. And then you click the easy apply button. Clicking that button takes like a minute. And if you do that 50 times, that's 1 hour. I'm only asking you to do 1 hour's worth of work per day, right? The reason I say this and why it opens up options for people is because if you do that for a whole week, you're going to get several calls for interviews. You might get 5, you might get 6, right? Some people could get 10. But either way, you'll get multiple. You do all of those interviews in a very short time. It could be a 1 week window, a 2 week window, but either way, it's in that very short window. And by the time offers start coming in, you have a lot to pick from versus someone who does like 5 job applications a day. They might get like an interview every 3 weeks. And at that point, like if someone did give them an offer, they might say, well, this offer expires in 10 days. What if they had another interview lined up in 9 days? Right. But they're forced to decide on the offer. It kind of like makes them feel like a fear of missing out. Like there's always that question of like, what if, right? What if I accepted the offer or what if I didn't?
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about effective goal setting when you're once you get a job. What do you think is the key to sustainability as well?
What do you mean by that? Sustainability?
Yeah, once you get a job, what do you think is the key to keeping it?
The thing to keeping it, I think that part is more about the vetting that you did before you accepted the offer, right? Because like what if you went in and you thought like, oh, this is going to be a great company, they have a great culture, and it doesn't. You should have done the a lot of the due diligence before you accepted the offer. I think a lot of people, especially if they have multiple offers, they simply pick the offer that pays them the most. They go like, well, this one paid me 10,000 more, so that's the one I'm going to go with. A lot of people would make that kind of financial decision because it makes sense. But I actually don't advocate for that. I ask like, well, how will this fit into your long-term career? What do you want to do eventually? Is this the one that will help you get there the fastest? Right? And then there's also the question of like, is this the one that will also make you the most happy as well? Right? Think about that. Well, you don't actually know really until maybe 6 months into a job whether an employer is toxic or not, or whether your coworkers will get along with you. But the best thing is really to read reviews from existing employees or employees that have left. You can go on Glassdoor and take a look. What did other people think? Maybe you don't fit there, so don't take those kinds of jobs.
Well, as a journalist at heart, I can respect doing research before, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And how do you think employers can conduct fair and honest job interviews? What sort of responsibilities do you place on the employers to also conduct a fair and honest process during the job interview or recruitment process?
I think they should have like a standardized template, you know. Um like if you're going to ask someone a question, yes, it's a conversation, but I actually think the employee should already have like a rubric and some pre-made questions that they will have to ask. They're required to ask every single candidate. But aside from that, it should be a free-flowing conversation. And I just think employers, they don't have, a lot of small businesses especially, they don't have that rubric when it comes to hiring. Like, what exactly are you looking for in your candidate? How is it fair? Like, what if, let's say Katie in the one of the departments interviewed one of the candidates, and then John from another department interviewed a candidate as well. Like, if they don't have a set criteria, and then they just picked based on, like, well, I like that person's personality, it doesn't necessarily seem fair, right? I think there should be a rubric that everybody follows. That's the way to keep it the most fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I know you also talk to people about developing personal brands that can withstand the recession period. So tell me, what's the key to developing a professional brand that is sustainable?
Yeah, it's sustainable. Look, people don't understand this. Everyone already has a personal brand. Like, even if you don't even have a Facebook, an Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, like, even if you don't have any of those, you have a personal brand, because you read any branding book, and all of the branding books will tell you a brand is basically what other people think of you. It is their judgment of you, their evaluation of you, their opinion of you. So if you're not on the internet, people's opinion of you could be, you are so stuck in 2005, you haven't caught up with the world, right? like that could be the brand that you have. If you're on social media, but all you do is you keep posting pictures of what you ate, this is what I eat brand, right? And then, like, if you're also like just constantly posting your real estate, posting about real estate, houses that you're selling or houses that you've sold, then this is the I sell houses brand. So everyone already has a brand. So yes, it's sustainable, because the question is, how do you curate your brand? And what I encourage people to do is 80% of the content you post should be related to your profession. If you want to get ahead in your career and make your brand such that it's more about your career, and be given opportunity outside of applying for jobs, where when people are like, I need to hire somebody, do you know somebody that can do this? And they're like, yeah, I think John can do it because he's always posting on Facebook, he must be good at what he does, right? That's the perception that you build when 80% of the things you post are related to the work that you do.
Yeah, that led into my next question and asking about how personal experiences can act as an ally during your job search, because I know that employers view social media now before they proceed with the hiring process. So, what's the delicate balance in your view from posting on social media and using it as a professional ally, and also making sure that it doesn't work to your detriment when you're going through a job search? Because employers look at everything nowadays on social media, don't they?
Yeah, they look at everything, even though other people might say, well, that's wrong. You shouldn't be hiring based on my personal social media. The fact is, a lot of people want to do their due diligence and see what kind of character or personality you have before they even speak to you. Like, for example, if you're on social media and you make a lot of angry, highly reactive posts a lot, you might be that kind of person in the workplace. That's the kind of perception you're giving off. And we don't want somebody who's always looking to start drama at work. We just want somebody who gets the job done and can get along with their coworkers without inciting something, right? So it is very important. So yes, I understand personal experiences. It's a personal Facebook, but like, keep it kosher, I guess I could say, you know?
And I have one rule on social media. I don't post anything I don't want my grandparents to see, okay?
I like that rule.
Because it's a lot harder to do damage control once it's out there, isn't it?
Yes. And it stays on there, and people can always like take screenshots. So even if you delete it, it's on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you've had some success on YouTube with over 1 million views on YouTube. So, what do you think is the key to engaging people on YouTube specifically?
It's not the same as it used to be, actually. You know, when I first started, I actually did it based on search terms, so SEO research. And I saw that a lot of people didn't know how to manage their money on a low income. So I started making videos about money management for people earning a low income. But the algorithm doesn't work the same, so I'm not really sure. These days, I read that the title and the thumbnail really has to catch people because YouTube will force recommendations on others if the video is doing well based on the statistics that they see. But yeah, it's weird. You know, it used to be like, for example, if you want to search videos about student loans, you type the word student loans into the search bar, and the videos that were most related to a student loan topic would be the ones that show up. But nowadays, YouTube simply pushes mainstream media videos about student loan debt and things like that. So it's not necessarily how relevant a video is anymore. I think it's more about how many eyeballs it can get and how many emotions it can rile up in you.
Yeah, absolutely. And based on your financial background, how important do you think practicality and personal tenacity is in a job search?
It is so important because I think a lot of people add like way too much emotion and drama to their job search. Like, oh, he didn't call me back, therefore, I must not be qualified. For all you know, it could be that the hiring manager was in the hospital. It's not personal, right? Like, so just keep going, keep applying, and as for like the people who tell you to your face that you're unqualified, who cares about what they say? They don't know you. And my personal opinion is like the way I see it, do you pay my bills? If you don't pay my bills, you don't have the right to criticize my life, you know? Like I genuinely do not care what people think anymore because if you don't pay my bills, I will not put too much into your opinion, basically.
Uh, the checks don't cast themselves. So if you
Yeah.
can have that personal autonomy, it's important, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you about networking because I believe that networking and forming relationships is sort of the lifeblood of life, to be quite frank, whether you're doing a job search or wanting to advance in other aspects of your life. So tell me the importance you place on networking and building relationships, and what do you think is the key to success there as well?
It's really important to network, but I think a lot of people, when they think of networking, they approach it with really bad mindset. The idea of their networking is like, well, what can you do for me? Right? Like this guy, I met this guy at Suffolk University. I gave a talk last month at Suffolk, and it was a networking event. So he got my business card, and then he emailed me and called me, and finally we got. I'm busy. I have a lot of things to do. So the best way to get in touch with me is appointments. So finally we got an appointment. He didn't show up for the appointment on time. He was 20 minutes late, first of all. And then when we finally got on this call, he just said, "Oh, I just wanted to connect with you. I've been unemployed for a year, and in this year, I've been going to so many networking events. I go to one networking event a week, but I still cannot get a job." And then he asked me like, "Do I have any advice for him?" And then I was like, "Honestly, um, I could give you very generic advice, but I can't give you highly personalized advice because I don't fully know your situation just yet. We would need like an in-depth hour just to really figure out what is the source of the problem, and I would also need your resume." And then because otherwise, how can I help you? I don't know what's on your resume, right? And so he's like, "Well, I can give you my resume right now." And I was like, Okay. So he emailed me the resume like right there in the call. "Can you look at it now?" And then I was like, Okay, sure, I can look at it now. "Can you tell me what's wrong with it right now?" I was like, yeah, sure, you know. So I told him, but then I was like, this is not like freebies, like the relationship. I literally told him relationships are give and take. I cannot just give. Like, what are you offering? I don't know. I'll think about it. Can I get back to you on that? Can you just help me with this right now? Like, that kind of attitude where it's just about what can I give him? Well, it makes me wonder, is this really the source of like why there's no fruits? He doesn't see the fruit of his networking because it's all about what people can do for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, tell me, when you look at your own personal and professional legacy, how do you want that to be defined?
Well, I really want to leave behind a whole collection of books. So the 5-Day Job Search is only my second book. I plan to write hundreds more because there's so much that I want to share with people. But I feel like unless I share it through written form or something that can be saved, something that can be consumed forever, people will forget, right? I want to leave behind something that even 100 years from now, somebody picks it up and goes like, wow, this content is evergreen, right? This problem I'm struggling with, it was even a problem for people 100 years ago, but Annie had a solution and the solution is going to work. So I really want to leave behind that kind of legacy on people.
Yeah, and I have one more for you because as a motivational speaker myself, and I know that the value of a value proposition statement is very important. And I used to be the lead job developer for the YMCA from in my hometown, and I worked on the first online job matching portal for people with disabilities and employers to get connected on behalf of the Canadian and Ontario government. And I always told employers that the value proposition statement of your job applicants is important, but the value proposition statement of your company is also important. So tell me your stance on value proposition statements and how important they are.
I think it's really important, but the problem is people will just write up these value statements, right? Value proposition statements, and then it's kind of like just there hanging on the wall. People don't actually embody them, live them. So it's kind of like worthless to do it if there's no point in implementing whatever value proposition statement that you've put up, right? I think a lot of people do it just for show. So that's the issue there.
Well, yeah, you got to practice what you preach, right?
Yeah, I think people need to practice what they preach.
Absolutely. And then finally, tell me if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
The best way to get in touch with me is by heading over to www.annieyangfinancial.com. That's ANNIEYANG financial.com. This is now the year 2024, and my word of the year is TikTok. I'm going to get on TikTok and grow my TikTok following. So also follow me on TikTok. The username handle is Annie Yang Financial.
Fantastic. Well, Annie, I really want to thank you for having an inclusive conversation with me all about the employment and job interview process. And I want to thank you for the good work that you've done to provide people the financial and practical advice to land a dream job. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation this morning, and I want to thank you for being here.
Kevin, thanks for having me today. Really, really appreciated it.